Guilty. Guilty. All the apartments have roaches and rats. Are we overdressed or are you underdressed? The men suck. New York City is a city of hustle. Hey y'all, it's Thomasina. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, thanks for tuning in. If you're interested about learning more about what New York City has to offer, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the post notifications so that you're updated every time I upload a new video. Since moving to New York City, or even before moving to New York City, everyone was trying to scare me from moving here by basically feeding me their assumptions about what New York City would be like, and today I'm going to respond to those assumptions. Honestly, reading your assumptions was hilarious because for the most part they were true, so let's jump right into it. The first assumption is that everyone is overdressed. This one I felt was funny because literally if you walk down the streets of New York, like, people will be dressed any and every kind of way, but it's like it's normal here, so no one is really like looking at you crazy for wearing like a big top hat and like a bright lime green sundress. Like, it just is what it is. It's fashion. Are we overdressed or are you underdressed? I will say that the fashion sense in New York City is definitely unorthodox, but I think that people in New York City just have a confidence where they're able to pull off like any and every look, almost any and every look. It's really not weird here, you know. So I wouldn't say that, you know, everyone is overdressed. You definitely have people who come out in like sweatpants and slippers and bonnets and stuff, but I definitely do think that when the time is right, New Yorkers definitely do show up and show out. And I think overall the fashion sense in New York is just, it's dope, it's carefree. I got a lot of people saying that New York City is dangerous. Of course, every state, every city, every country is gonna have areas where it's more dangerous than others. I will say New York compared to like my hometown of Raleigh, North Carolina, there's definitely a higher crime rate. It just depends on which neighborhood you're in, but I think you just have to be smart about where you are, what time you're there, and, you know, just how you present yourself. You just have to be precautious. But yeah, it is pretty dangerous in some parts of New York. Someone said that it's very hard to make it as a model here in New York City. I would say honestly it depends. It depends on how bad you want it. It also depends on what's your market. Like, what do you look like? Are you trying to break through in the commercial market or trying to break through in the fashion industry? So I think it really does depend. It's definitely not easy. It's definitely competitive. Some people will say it's hard, and some people will just say that you have to work hard. So it just depends on your language, but I will definitely say it's not easy, and you definitely, I said definitely like 500 times, but you will have to put in the work to make it here. Someone said that there are a lot of homeless people. 100% yes. When I first moved back to New York City, that was like one of the first things that I noticed, is that the homeless population in New York is extensive and it's growing continuously, and it's so sad to see because, you know, although New York is a very resourceful place, I just feel like there aren't enough resources for the population of people that are homeless, which is why you see them out on the streets. That's why you see so many of them out on the streets. And I think mental health definitely plays a large role in why the population of homeless people continues to grow. Access to mental health services is just so far few in between, and it's so expensive. Like, people cannot afford mental health services. It just creates this spiraling effect. So yes, there definitely are a lot of people who are homeless here in New York, and it's a major issue, and I think that we need to be doing more to service this population of people to make sure that they are able to bounce back from their circumstances and live healthier, more sustainable lives. But also you come across those people who may be homeless, but they've been homeless for so long that that's all that they know, so they have no interest in receiving services. They have no interest in getting off the streets, and so they have just become, I guess, I don't want to say complacent, but they've become comfortable in their circumstances. So you also have that as well. Someone said New Yorkers are rude and not friendly. I don't know. I definitely feel like New Yorkers are a bit more like hard if that makes sense. And obviously you're going to encounter some rude people. There are rude people everywhere. But then again, like when I was living in North Carolina, people thought that I was rude just because, you know, I'm from New York originally and all my family's from New York. So I grew up around those personalities, so I was kind of used to it. So I don't know, my perspective on what being rude is may be different from the person who submitted this question or this assumption. I will say people in New York are definitely a lot more straightforward and hard and like aggressive in their tone of voice, which can be perceived as rude from people who aren't from here. But then there you do have people who are just like blatantly rude, like obviously they're rude. But I definitely think that New Yorkers have a way of talking, their tone of voice, and honestly their pitch of voice, because New Yorkers are mad loud for no reason. But all of that can be perceived as being rude when really it's not even their intention to be rude. But other than that, I think that, you know, you'll find New Yorkers who are very helpful. Like if you're lost, trying to find how to get somewhere on the subway or the bus, like they're super helpful and willing to help you out with that. So I don't know. I guess it just depends on who you encounter and like how sensitive of a person you are. Someone said the men suck. Trying to change my dialogue surrounding men. I don't think that they suck. I think that dating in New York is definitely difficult. And if you haven't checked out my part 1 and part 2 of dating in New York City videos, go check them out because we definitely gave a lot of tips and tricks and hacks to dating in New York City in those videos. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that the men suck. I just think that men in New York City are very like career driven. And so if you catch a man who is, you know, at the either the beginning of his career or maybe like he's trying to excel and level up, he may not be as focused on a relationship as maybe you are in the time. So I think it's just, you know, maybe like right person, wrong time kind of circumstances, or just meeting a man with the same intentions as you and being straightforward about what you want. But I think if you are straightforward in the very beginning about what you want, you can easily weed out the men who are not looking for the same things as you, and then maybe that will change your mindset about men sucking in the city. It's just like what you're going after. It depends on like what kind of energy are you putting out, and in turn you'll see the kind of energy that you're receiving from these men. So yeah, I wouldn't say that men suck. It's just all about like who are you going after? What kind of men are you seeking out? Are they ready to commit if you're looking for commitment? Somebody said everybody wears Tim boots in New York City. Guilty. Guilty. Honestly, it's just a really good boot. It's a durable boot. Why wouldn't you have Tim boots? You know how much it snows here? Like, come on, it makes sense. It makes sense. You pretty much will see everyone in Timberland boots, regardless of the season. Winter, summer, spring, fall. Tim boots are year round. Come on, it's New York. That's fact. I can't even argue with that one. All the apartments have roaches and rats. That's not true. Although there are an excessive amount of roaches and rats in the city in general, you can definitely find some nicer apartments that are very clean, put together, and don't have any infestation problems. And landlords are actually required to hire exterminators and have people come out to exterminate the apartment if there is an infestation of roaches and rats. So roaches and rats, so there really shouldn't even be an issue, but ultimately it definitely is. Thankfully, I've never had an issue with any kind of bugs. There may be a bug here or there, but like that's just life. But yeah, not all the apartments have roaches and rats. Definitely in the subway and just like on the streets in the summertime, you'll definitely see hella rats everywhere. And then roaches usually come out like fall, winter. So they definitely have their seasons. But yeah, you just have to like scope out the neighborhood, go see the apartment before committing to signing, and just see like what if you see any roaches crawling around. All New Yorkers are overly cocky. I will definitely say that like when I was living in North Carolina growing up, people always would call me like cocky, and I don't think it's cockiness. I just think that people from New York have a certain confidence to them, like from the way they walk, from the way they talk, that people who may not have that, they may perceive that as cockiness. Obviously, of course, you probably have like you probably encounter people in New York who are like legitimately cocky, but I think ultimately most New Yorkers just have a confidence that people from other territories don't have, and when they don't have it, it's perceived as cockiness. So New Yorkers just know what they bring to the table. You know, they have great style. You know, they may be like physically attractive, and they know that and they own it, and they exude that. They exude that energy of just confidence and self-awareness. You know, people consider cockiness like a flaw, like a something that's not very attractive. But yeah, I just think it's confidence. There's a difference. Someone had the assumption that the job market is very competitive, and that's true. You know, New York City is competitive in general. Even though we also have a large job market, we have people coming in from everywhere, even internationally. So yes, of course it's going to be competitive. So you have to come in knowing your stuff, and again, exude that confidence that you are the one for the job. So yeah, it is a very competitive market, but ultimately there are a lot of options and a lot of opportunities for you to diversify your employment background. You know, maybe you're coming here to be an actor, and the acting jobs are not really hitting like you thought they would. You can pick up a side job. You can be a productions assistant, so you can still be on set and get to know people. You may not be a principal actor, but you'll still be in that environment. So with New York, although it's competitive, there are so many ways for you to get your foot in the door. You just have to, you know, play the game and finesse. I feel like New York is really all about finesse. Someone said that it is lonely. Yeah, it definitely can be lonely, especially if you're moving here, you know, by yourself on your own, knowing no one in the city to begin with. It definitely can be lonely, but also there are so many people around. You know, social media is a great tool to meet people online first and then meet them in person. But then again, there are a lot of events hosted in New York where you could just show up and then meet people when you're there. So although it is a lonely city, there are plenty of opportunities to meet people. You just have to take advantage of them. And if you're kind of like an introvert like me, a lot of people ask like, how do I just like go to the park by myself and meet people, or how do I just go to like these meetups by myself and meet people? You guys, when you are forced, when you're put in a situation and forced to do something, like, you're gonna do it. I am the kind of person, I don't like sitting in my room. I cannot sit still. If you guys are familiar with my channel and familiar with my Instagram, you guys know I'm always somewhere, and I don't have a lot of friends, and I'm still always out and about just because I can't sit still. I can't sit in my room, and so I'm gonna be forced to go out, and I'm gonna be forced to meet people. And I'm the kind of person, I prefer doing things with other people. So if you really want something, you'll go out and do it. If you don't really want it, you'll make an excuse. So do you want friends? Do you want connection? Do you want to build your network? Then you're gonna go out and you're gonna meet people. And it may be hard at first, but if you're a drinker, sometimes it helps to take, you know, a shot or two before you go out. If you're not a drinker, pray on it, just meditate on it, journal about it, and then go out and do it. Or I mentioned this in a video previously about how to make friends in New York City, but use the app Bumble. Bumble has like the Bumble BFF option where you can meet friends, and so sometimes if you're an introvert, it helps to connect with someone online before meeting in person, and it makes the process a lot easier. So I say all that to say, yes, New York can be lonely, but there are definitely a ton of options for you to go out and meet people and not be so lonely anymore. Yes, obviously New York is expensive AF for no apparent reason, but obviously there are ways to maneuver around the city so where you're not completely broke and you can still enjoy your life. If you guys are familiar with my channel, you see that I'm always doing something. I'm not like struggling in life, and obviously it depends on what you do for your occupation, but New York City is a city of hustle. You are gonna find a way to get the money legally, hopefully, but if illegally, you know, I'm not judging, it's none of my business. If you really want to be here, you're gonna find a way to make it, and don't go splurging your money all willy-nilly on things that don't matter. Like me, I prefer to spend my money on shoes and experiences. I'm not out here buying $50,000 handbags and going to $200 brunches every week. Like, no, you have to be smart about your money. You have to develop a budget, and doing so will allow you to have a more fruitful experience in New York City. You know, Find the cheap deals. Find the restaurants that have specials. Find free events to go to. It's so many options. So yes, although New York is expensive, there's definitely opportunity and spaces for you to enjoy it without breaking the bank. Someone said you have to have a roommate to be able to afford living in New York City, and roommates suck. So no, you don't have to have a roommate. It honestly just depends on your budget. It depends on how much money you're bringing in, whether or not you can afford a one bedroom or whether or not you have to have roommates. I've definitely heard like roommate horror stories. Thankfully, I haven't had any experiences like that. It's all about due diligence before making the move, and committing to living with another person. I know people can lie on applications and people can tell you what they think you want to hear when you're like asking questions about it for a potential roommate, but you just have to develop like a sixth sense to read people. And so when looking for roommates, I mean, I know this is not a video about searching for roommates, but just to help combat that assumption that all roommates suck, do your due diligence. So that means, say you find a nice apartment and you need to find 2 other roommates to fill the other 2 rooms in the apartment. Utilize Facebook, utilize Bumble BFF again, utilize Instagram, utilize the internet, guys. Ask questions. Are you a smoker? Are you allergic to pets? Do you have a significant other? Do they come over every single night? Are you a fairly clean person? Why are you leaving your current place? Did you get along with your current roommates? What do you do for fun? Do you have company over often? What's your occupation? Asking these kinds of questions will allow you to get a feel of the person before you decide to commit to a 2 year long lease. And maybe if you ask those questions beforehand, you will have a better roommate experience and you won't have this negative connotation about having roommates. Because honestly, you know, having roommates, saves you money, and if you're moving here by yourself, it's an opportunity to meet people, make connections, and potentially create lifelong friendships. So having roommates is not all that bad, but obviously there are cases where roommates are just like insane and you would rather not put up with them. So it just depends. I think ultimately you guys did a pretty good job with your assumptions. They were fairly spot on. Most of the assumptions were negative, so I like to give you guys the positive about New York City, especially for those who watch my channel and are interested in moving to New York. I don't want you guys to be scared away by people's assumptions and what you hear about the city. It's honestly an amazing city, which is why everyone keeps moving here. Like, people are obsessed with New York City and they have every right to be. It's an amazing city and you just have to find what works for you. So take from that what you will. I hope this video gave you a little bit more insight into what can be expected of New York City, and I'm not the New York City expert or anything. This is just based on my experience and what I've seen from living here, but I guess you'll have to find out for yourself. You'll have to move here and see. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will catch you in the next one. Bye! 'Cause I'm not just a pretty girl.